Welcome to the Just Heat Pumps podcast. I'm Aaron,
I'm Xerxes.
and today we're going to kick off a little multi part series where we compare being a DIYer installer of heat pumps versus being a professional installer and what each install looks like. Isn't that right?
I'm so excited about it.
Good. We're going to talk about our own experience first about being DIYers and doing our own homes, starting off at more kind of novice level heat pump installers, and then what it's like now, here years later, being professional heat pump installers. We will come from the perspective of pros and cons of the DIYer, and then the third or fourth video on pros and cons of being a professional installer and having a professional HVAC or heat pump company do your heat pump install, and then we'll summarize with the final video at the end. So we're really excited to kick this off. Hope you stay tuned for the whole thing, and let's get started with your experience, Xerxes.
Thanks, Aaron. I've been on both sides of this discussion. I've done the full DIY experience, both repairing and installing my own heat pumps in my home. And then through this whole amazing journey, own and run this business, installing heat pumps professionally with teams, master electricians, master mechanical installers, and I can tell you they're different. And so that's really what we'll be exploring here. And on one end of the spectrum, right? It's not black and white. It's not binary. There's definitely a spectrum of how handy you are with tools, how much risk you're willing to take on, how much time you have to learn and dedicate to a significant DIY project like a heat pump. And so there's that self-satisfaction part of being DIY and doing it yourself in addition to the risk. And then there's just the clean look, assurance, uh, warranty, and support and time savings that you get with professional install. So this is just a guide and help folks decide whether they want to go all in and spend all that time and effort and get that self-satisfaction of DIY or really get support and help through that installation. And so the reason I'm thinking of this, and we keep dancing around this topic because it comes up so often. Well, the equipment's so affordable, right, in terms of Amazon delivery, and you see these low prices. And we were at a restaurant, my wife and I, with some friends the other night, and I, I was, I swear I was paying attention to our table, but I couldn't help but overhear at the next table that someone had mentioned mini splits, and my ears were like, mini splits? What? What's going on over there? And my ears perked up. It's my favorite topic. And they were talking very loudly. But he said, I'm doing one in the bedroom, one in the main room, and the contractor wants to charge me $14,000. And I can get this equipment online for like 2,500 bucks. And do you really think they're worth that much? And the women at the table were like, "No way, you should do it yourself." And he said, "I'm thinking about it." and and that's how the adventure can start, with just that discussion and people cheering you on, and it's really a journey, and that could be a first step. But I started giggling, and everyone at the table was like, "What are you giggling about?" And I was like, "Okay, well, this is what they're talking about, that next table." And then I started riffing about DIY and realized that I had the wrong crowd. And so this is the forum to really explore what it means to DIY it and why you may or may not want to. And so this hopefully can help people make that decision.
Yeah, that's great. And you have DIY'd your own heat pumps for your own house you're in right now, right?
So I have done two DIYs, and one was forced upon me because I couldn't find a contractor that knew how to fix
Hmm.
our heat pump, which was poorly installed. You can read about that on our website, a blog article. And that was also that motivated me to buy a lot of tools, about $3,000 worth of repair and commissioning tools. And that tipped me over the edge to do DIY because I already had a nice tool set. I knew what commissioning looked like, and it wasn't going to be that hard. For me, who I've been doing home repairs for 13 years, and got the first thing I did when we moved into the house was buy a really nice Milwaukee tool set to save my wrists.
Right.
And just a lot of experience with that. And part of our addition plans was to put a one-to-one wall mount mini split ductless unit in there to handle heating and cooling needs. And the contractor quoted us $8,500 for the installation and the equipment. It was a single line item with no details whatsoever. Looking back, I think that no matter what the equipment would have been, it was kind of a low price now that I
Hmm.
know how much these things cost and the
Sure.
effort that goes into running a business and feeding people. And so that really motivated me to do the heat pump there. I was already planning to do kitchen cabinets, shelving, paint, so much of that project. So the heat pump allowed me to design where it was going to go, where the circuit would be placed, and to work with the contractors on that. And so, as part of that, I mean, you would think a one-to-one mini split ductless unit would be pretty easy to install. And in fact, it was. I did it entirely by myself, except for uh, placing the heavy equipment outside. I had help to lift and put that in place for my daughter. And it was great. I got satisfaction knowing that I could do it. It took 5 days of effort, a lot of learning, reading manuals. How does this tool work? Am I doing this right? Oh, I should fix that. That's not correct. And there was, looking back, some mistakes that I made. Number one of those was buying budget equipment. The SEER, SEER, or seasonal energy efficiency rating is a number that may or may not play out in real life.
Hmm.
And the cold climate equipment that I bought, turns out, is not very efficient, even though that SEER number was very high. And so with my energy monitor now, I can see that and I know the truth of it. But also, it's very loud, the equipment that I bought, indoor and out. The placement of the outside unit was, now that I know how to run long line sets and put them in better places of the house, I would have never put it in the middle of my patio. Just, that's a bad place to do that, or below a window. And the line hide that I ran is not pretty. It's not something I'm very proud of in terms of the looks. And then so I'm just laying it all out there, all the mistakes I made on my first DIY that we no longer make,
Hmm.
because we keep learning. And then additionally, one thing is you want the hole penetration in a particular place to minimize any chances of leaks if you have to move the unit, that you don't open that flare connection that can leak out refrigerant. So luckily mine does not. And then also condensate. So any chance of condensate on copper piping inside your house will stain your walls blue. Copper oxide running down and will just deposit on your walls. And so I learned that kind of the hard way. And those are typical mistakes where you don't know because I didn't have, dozens of heat pump installations and all the discussions with professionals that could guide me in a direction to take it to this high level pro quality install that we now do. And so that was my DIY experience. And I can tell you I did a lot better than the actual contractors on my house
Oh, good.
that first time, but I also learned from their mistakes. And so every mistake I made on the DIY I've learned from and definitely leveled up. And it was just it was a great experience knowing that, and also knowing that it helped launch my career in HVAC, where we've done so many installs since then that I know uh, how to make it pro, how to make it last a long time, and how to make it beautiful, design, match the home, all these tools and software and simulations and community, as well as permitting offices and professionals in the industry. It's really leveled up our game and our install quality. And that's where the value is in the professional install. So, like a one-off, if you're going to do one, just know that there is that risk involved of leaking refrigerant into the atmosphere, which can cause, the equivalent of 2 to 3,000 pounds of CO2 per pound of refrigerant. And that it's almost a year's worth of carbon emissions for driving around. And these kind of things can be, um, something that you weigh into your pro and con, lists. Should I do it? Should I not? And that's a big that's a big factor that comes into any DIY discussion when you take on a big project, but especially for heat pumps, the environmental, the emissions, air quality, in addition to your kind of top line cost savings.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I think you skipped over that would be good for the listeners to be aware of is you're a PhD physicist and you worked at NREL, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. Not only are you comfortable with home maintenance and stuff like that for I think 13 years you said, but
Yeah.
you've worked with gases, you work with flammable materials and really complex similar type machines at School of Mines as a professor for a long time, and that all plays into it, where someone like me starting who has like a finance background, a little bit, have renovated net zero homes and been in sustainability and so forth, it's super intimidating when you actually get out there after watching 15, 20 YouTube videos that are 45 minutes each. And you're like, I can do that. And then you get out there, right, to the backyard and you are just like, whoa, and it's like, I forgot this tool and I don't know how to do this. And, what, again, we'll talk about the pros and cons of DIY and perspectives as a professional installer now, but there's a lot to it. And for my end, non-technical that way, there's so many moving parts. There's so many things to learn, and we'll address the cost. I mean, a lot of why you start thinking of doing DIYing is saving money, and there's some perspectives there, such as not everything is monetary. Time is non-monetary. Leaking refrigerant into the atmosphere, which is illegal, actually, per the EPA, and things like that is non-monetary. Being frozen when it's 5 degrees out because the thing failed is having your family upset at you. There's a lot of other things there. But if you can do it, and if you have the wherewithal and time and everything, then DIY could be an option. And we've done both here.
I think that's a really good point. A technical aptitude, some comfort around tools, and yeah, I tend not to toot any horns about having a
I'll
PhD
do
in
it for you.
physics.
Yeah,
Yeah, 20 years experimental physics. I ran a semiconductor fabrication lab, full self-contained breathing apparatus to do some of that maintenance. You're on the clock, you got 40 minutes of air, go before you
right.
have to go switch tanks, with pyrophoric materials that, are deadly toxic and combust when they touch air. really challenging vacuum systems, high pressure systems. And so, yeah, I did have a sense of how the system and the tools work and a confidence to go in with it. And I think a lot of folks who DIY also have confidence with maybe carpentry, mechanics on automobiles, electrical systems, and that can translate into a successful DIY install, especially
Mhm.
if you're willing to read the manual, right? The manual is
Right.
your best friend in that sense. It doesn't give you any of the decades of experience, but it does at least give you the backstop to not make egregious errors uh, on the installation. But yeah, that's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, and that being said, even with all your experience, I mean, we're years into this now. We're still learning every single install. Something comes up. Every home is different. Every install is different. All the equipment, line set runs, electrical, plumbing considerations, permits, requirements, code compliance, safety
Yeah.
now with
Yep.
A2L. I mean, everything. There's a huge, huge list of things to be aware of if this is to be done correctly.
You touched on quality too, and I just have to have to kind of double down on that because one of our missions is to really be the top quality installer around. And I had a discussion with a leading company owner, in the neighborhood, and he's like, "Well, at what point do you have quality versus cost concerns? How much is too much? It's sometimes it's just too hard to hit that level or these extra steps." And I pushed back. I said, every job teaches us something, and we learn something new on that. And that level is the level up there. And we take that and set the new internal standard. This is how we're going to do it next time and going forward. And each and every time, that's just another notch up in quality. And we keep on that trajectory. And I think that's another key aspect of the value of going to a professional installation because all of those lessons learned you don't have to learn in your house with mistakes. It can be all those mistakes can be avoided and that's a real good reason to do it.
Yeah, definitely. Great. So I think with that, we'll jump to uh, the pros of doing a DIY system as the next video in our series. So stay tuned on that. We hope you like this so far, and we hope to have the next one uploaded for you very soon here.